I'm right off base.
Oh, this is right off the base.
Right off base.
Cool.
And I literally get high in a Shell gas station right in front of the door. So I'm just parked right there in front of the door. And I get tinted windows, so I don't care. My buddy hops in, we score. I get high and I go to put it in reverse. And as I go to put it in drive, I fall out. My head hits the steering wheel and I just coast into a truck. And then some E7 comes out and is screaming, making this whole big scene. My buddy put up the windows and stashed everything like that. Next thing I know, I wake up. All I remember is waking up and I'm like, how the fuck is somebody so strong that they're able to hold me down right now? I felt like 3 people were holding me down, and sure as shit, it was the paramedics strapping me in, and they were hitting me with Narcan. And I woke up and all I could think about is I just remember I felt like there was a SWAT team out there ready to take me to jail.
Episode 11, Shawn Livingston, aka I Am Redemption, which is like the dopest fucking nickname ever.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure, bro. My pleasure.
It is honestly a pleasure to have you on here. I love your story. I love your background. I love how honest you are with the real you, your real past, as dark as it got. And to see somebody come out on the other end after having to deal with that and having to work through it and live through it, and letting people down that were close to you. And then, you know, like you said, I am redemption, finding redemption in your past and, you know, creating a brighter future for you. So good on you. Thank you for being here. Feel free to go ahead and tell people about who you are.
Thank you, bro. Who I am. Just,
Who are you?
Dude, an addict that got his shit together. No, man, just a 10-year military veteran, lost my way after getting out of the military, got injured training to go to Iraq. Got stuck on painkillers there for a couple of years, got yanked off them, and developed into quite an issue. And then I was a partier anyways, and so it was kind of off to the races. We got back from deployment, and I just lost my way.
Yeah.
Got out of the military, got in trouble pretty quickly, started getting in trouble with the law. I had to go away for a while, but luckily ended up in the great state of Texas, ended up in Austin, discovered the running community, the fitness community, got my shit together, got sober, and got involved in ultra running, and it ended up taking me to heights I didn't think were possible. I ended up accomplishing things that I didn't know even humans could do, especially me. And so it was just such a metaphor for life and such a learning lesson for me that I was capable of so much more than I've been giving myself credit for years. And so, you know, I didn't understand the world existed where we could ever take all this pain and all this shit we have been through and ever use it to help other people. And not even just people in recovery, but regular everyday people too.
Yeah.
The more I've gotten out here and spoken and traveled around with the documentary or any of that kind of stuff, I speak to a lot of crowds that aren't necessarily like in the recovery world. And one thing I know about addicts, alcoholics, we're used to talking about our stuff. And so I started realizing the more I'm willing to open up and be vulnerable about my stuff, it opens the floodgates for everybody else. And so that kind of took me out into this world where reaching people I didn't ever think it was possible. So here we are.
Yeah. And it's interesting because even if somebody that's listening to you speak or listening to your podcast or watching your documentary or whatever it is, even if you necessarily didn't go down that kind of route with the drugs and stuff like that, we all know somebody who has, whether it's a friend or it's a family member, like, or a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
We've all heard of people. So it does impact everybody, whether you choose to ignore it in society or not. This is impacting everybody around us.
Right.
There's people living on the street that I used to go to school with, right? There's people that are dead because they OD'd, right? So I think it's special what you're doing now, and I think you're going to reach a lot of people. So I'm very glad to bring you on here.
Thank you.
So you kind of skimmed over your military career. I want to go back to that
Right.
because there's some stories that, you know, so you guys were basically a recovery unit in Afghanistan, was it?
Yeah. No, Iraq.
Iraq, I'm sorry.
So originally, right after 9/11, I went into the Air Force right out of high school. Did 6 years in the Air Force, was a crew chief on C-130s, but I just did not have the life experience to understand how good I had it in the Air Force. So I'm stationed over in Germany thinking I hated life, all homesick, thinking I'm missing like all these big bad things all my friends are back home doing. Get out of the Air Force, go back home, and Oxycontin had just leveled my area. I didn't necessarily even see hard drugs till I was out of school. I went back there and it was everywhere. And so that was kind of the start of everything. And so I started running around in my old circles and not leading into good things. And so that's what kind of nudged me to get back into the military. Couldn't get back into the Air Force. Every fiscal year would roll around. I was trying to get back in and couldn't. And so then I joined the Army. They shipped me down to Texas. And I remember we were doing a refresher for basic, getting requalled on weapons and everything. And the the Air Force recruiter called and was like, "Hey man, if you want to get in, just bring me your folder." And I was like, "You mother." So I was already in the Army, but it happened how it should. And so I got stationed in Fort Hood, Texas, and then started training to go over there.
Yeah. And then talk about your deployments. Like, what were you guys doing down there? In your documentary, you were talking about how, it kind of messed you up a little bit, and what kind of effect do you think that had, like, coming back and getting out?
I mean, I was definitely by no stretch of the imagination any war hero or anything like that. I was mainly trying to stay out of trouble. And
When you deployed and you served for this country, you're definitely a war hero.
Thank
so don't ever understate yourself.
I appreciate that. You know, the things got wild in our unit. I think towards the end of the deployment, things started getting really loose with people and ranks and all that kind of stuff. And so when we came back, it was just walls to the walls. Everybody, no story I'm sure you're familiar with. And so we have all this money from hazardous duty pay, and that's really where you started seeing the manifestations of people's PTSD or whatever you want to call it come out. And so, we were doing QRF over there. I was stationed at a fuel point out at War Eagle, some little blip on the map that would get hit kind of frequently. And we were basically based out of Camp Taji, running a bunch of missions out of there. And but when we got back is kind of when everything started to unfold. They let us go on leave, and within those couple weeks, I lost 3 of the closest people in the world to me. My squad leader, who I always use as the example of, like, if I was going to show anybody an American soldier, this is the guy I would show. He's everything I wanted to be in a leader, a man. Looked up to him, would give my life for him, just like I know he would have done for me. And we were texting the night before, and we were going back and forth about the Steelers-Patriots playing. And the next morning we show up to formation, he wasn't there. And then later on after PT, we'd find out that apparently, I guess there was some infidelity while we were gone, and he ended up emptying a clip on his wife and then turned the gun on himself with both of his small children in the house.
Jeez.
And so it's like, that's the most uncharacteristic thing for this man in the world. Like, I still can't wrap my head around it. Horrible. Come later, drugs and alcohol, I think, were involved. My other best friend, I think Corey, he hung around me so much, and I think he got so desensitized to my drug use that he thought it was like no big deal. He ended up getting stationed somewhere else right when we got back, and didn't know he couldn't mix opiates and Xanax. Laid down to take a nap, never woke up again. Jesus. And then my other best friend, he went home on R&R to visit his mom, and they found him unresponsive, laying on his kitchen floor, and next to him was his mother, who was dead from blunt force trauma to the head from mixing alcohol and pills.
Jesus.
And so he's doing life in Alabama. And so we came back, all that happened, and here I got the addiction monkey on my back. And so it was just, all that money was getting blown. And how I made it through almost my entire enlistment, I have no idea. But towards the end, I just ended up going AWOL, and I was out. It was over for me at that point.
Yeah, well, I can imagine losing your 2 best friends and your mentor, your leader.
Yeah.
That kind of. I was deployed to Camp Taji too. My last deployment. Yeah, I know very well. Camp Taji.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a shame that I understand what it's like. I actually had a commander SEAL that was on here last one, and we had a long talk about the 0 tolerance policy that they have in the military for deployments now. He was kind of like of the opinion that it's necessary because some guys just need somebody to tell them no. But what I saw is in the older guys, especially the younger guys, it seemed to work out good. The 0 tolerance policy seemed to be good for the younger guys, but the older guys that are deploying out there, this might be their 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th deployment. They have a lot more stress in their life than some young new guy that's out there, right? And they need to blow off steam, right? And if you're not going to allow them to have a few drinks on deployment, they're going to get their fix through other means, and it's typically through using your interpreters to go out into town and bring back prescription pills that you can't, because you can buy them over the counter there, And so what I saw in my time was guys that would start to lose their shit because they're used to blowing off steam and having some drinks on the weekend. They get deployed for 9 months and you don't have anything. So what do? You go find something, and they would go, send it, they come back, and now they're hooked on this. And then they smuggle it back to the U.S., however, speaker boxes or whatever the hell they're going to put it in. And now they're hooked on opioids, and then they're coming back to America where they can mix it with alcohol, and they haven't drank in 9 months. So you can imagine it's like the perfect storm.
Yeah.
And so what happens? they fucking get DUIs, they get domestic violence situations with their old ladies, and then, even worse in some cases, like your boy. So I'm sorry to hear about all that, man.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you didn't end up like that.
Right. I
And
think, dude, I think for myself and so many other people at that time is like I didn't have the proper tools in my toolbox to be able to deal with that.
mm,
You know what I mean? I didn't have these other avenues that I do now.
yeah, they don't teach you that when you're getting out of the military.
No, definitely. I mean, I was unfortunately in the military. Like, number one, I think a lot of all my substance abuse and everything is my fault. I'm not putting it on anybody else, but when I get injured and you prescribe me painkillers and shoot me up with steroid shots every other week, the culture in the military, if you're not serviceable, if you're not ready to go, you're faking, you're a piece of shit. Like, you know what I mean? People start looking at you crooked. And I'm very competitive. Like, that's the last thing in the world that's going to happen is I'm not going to deploy or anything. And so I was taking that all very personal. So it's shoving the painkillers down my throat, hit me up with another steroid injection, let's go. And it just beats you down, beats you down, beats you down.
Mm,
Then I'm jumping up and down off MRAPs and doing every other thing, full battle rattle like I shouldn't be.
right.
And it just continued to beat me down, beat me down. But I knew if I didn't, you know what I mean? Everyone's looking at me like I'm a quitter or I don't want to deploy or some other crazy shit. And
Right.
then you go to get kicked out or you go to get out. And the culture is like, I was made to believe there was no life after the military.
Mhm.
Like I thought it was over for me. But little did I know, like the best years would be ahead of me. Everything happened how it should have. But at that time, it was not right way of thinking.
So what year did you get out? You separated?
2011.
2011. And so how long was the period from then till you come out the other side of that addiction?
2017.
So 7 years.
Mhm.
7 years. Well, walk us down that 7 years. Let's go.
I started getting in trouble with the law as soon as I was out. I think right off base, I hit a parked car, totaled the SUV I have.
What were you taking at the time?
Anything I can get my hands on. Heroin was always the mainstay, but then at that point, it was anything else.
While still enlisted?
No, that was no the
That's from separation. Okay. So
yeah.
you weren't reserves of any sorts or anything like that at that point? You were just,
No.
okay.
I was out. I was so close to the end of my enlistment, they just ended up chaptering me and put my stuff at the end of the off base for me to come pick up. It wasn't difficult by any means, and but start getting in trouble with the law immediately, and got picked up for 2 possession cases in Waco for possession of heroin. And so at one time I was on bond and I was on bond in 3 different counties.
Hmm.
And so I was messing up a lot of places, and then knew that I wasn't doing any good.
Hmm.
And so now I had to go away. I had 2 years hanging over my head. I was going to have to go serve, and other charges I was going to have to serve. So I just ended up turning myself in and starting to serve that time. I lived in the delusion. I thought I was going to be good. I had my girlfriend at the time that I met in treatment and all my boys out on the street. I was like, oh, they're going to hold me down. This is going to be good. I can go do time. And I did that time absolutely by myself. It was the biggest waste of time ever. And I just remember sitting there. I was like, man, I was not raised to be here. These aren't my people. This is not the crowd I want to be in. And I can remember sitting in a holding cell, and my whole life, I always wondered when I saw people doing prison, they had prison ink. I was like, why when they get out, don't they get that touched up to like look better? And I was sitting in that holding cell, and I remember one of the young guys come walking in. He's like, man, I can't wait to get down there. I'm going to have all penitentiary ink and all that. And like a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. It's like a badge of honor. They want everybody to know that they've been here. And I was like, this is not what I want to do. Not what I'm here.
It's the highlight of their life.
Yeah. And so, it was in and out of treatments, bouncing all around, trying to do whatever I could, a lot of trying to get out of trouble, a lot of trying to get people to not be mad at me, but it was never like for the right reasons. And so through that 7 years, there was a lot of staying on people's couches, homelessness, I'll say, but I was never like actually out on the street, staying at people's houses, renting a room here, doing whatever I had to do. But just a lot of bouncing around, not knowing what I was going to do, what avenue I was going to take or anything like that. And finally I caught 2 more felonies for possession of heroin. And around this whole time, like I'd lived all over the country. Before going into the military, I'd bounced all over. And so I ran around in the streets thinking I was this big tough guy. And I'm served in the military and I've been in all these tough neighborhoods. I'm good anywhere I go. And I remember walking in front of that judge, and I was facing these other 2 felonies, and he looked me dead in the eyes, and all the tough guy shit went right out the window, because he was like, I don't see any reason to sentence you to under 20 years. And when he said that, it was just like, holy shit, like, all right, I'm going away for 20. And so, like, at the time, that was like felt like a life sentence to me.
Mm.
And so I just remember going back to my lawyer at that point, and I was like, sir, like, is there any chance you can get me some time before I have to go away to at least try to get sober? I don't try to get on speaking terms with my family, try to at least not have to kick when I go to jail. And he's like, if you can get into treatment, I think I can make that happen. And so I dove into the VA, and I ended up doing like 8 months at the VA. And for whatever reason, and if you saw the documentary, you'll see this, but for whatever reason, during that 8 months, I started keeping a folder of like all the work I was doing. And I'm not a tremendously organized person, so I was keeping a folder. I don't know, but every worksheet I did, every note I took, every test I took, it went into this folder.
Like a I Love Me binder, but for
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
There you go. And we got to the end of that 8 months, and really, I just wanted to show the lawyer I was so thankful he had got me that time. I'd reestablished communication with my mom at this point. She knew I was trying to get myself right as best as I could, and I had that folder, and I remember going to I finished all my time at the VA. They were basically pushing me out. It was 8 months, and so I'd go to this meeting with my lawyer, and I hand him this folder. And he opened the folder, and his jaw dropped. And he's like, Shawn, I never expected this out of you. Like, you've really given me something to work with here. So whatever you're doing, I just need you to keep doing it. And so that was like the first moment, and as long as I can remember, that I had like a ray of hope.
Mm.
And so I just latched onto it. And he's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And so I went back, tried to get back in the VA. They wouldn't take me. And so I found out about a state-funded place in Austin. And I went and I asked them, and they got me into it. And it was a 6-month inpatient facility. And so, like, I think about my journey and how many times I've been in treatment. If you had ever told me I would be signing up voluntarily for a 6-month treatment center, you'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But I could not wait to get there.
Mm.
And so I went in there, and it's just a couple different things happened, but I had this ray of hope, and I went up into treatment, and I was there for a little bit, and I was really bought in. I was doing everything, and I remember taking a look in the mirror one day, and you swear on here?
Yeah.
All right. Fuck. Remember just making sure. I remember I'd taken a look in the mirror, and I hated who I saw. I had a gut out to here. I felt like shit. I looked like shit. It was just not how I'd ever been, but just through injury and addiction, I just let myself go. And so I found out about a little running group that met in downtown Austin that meets a couple times a week. And I got special permission to go to this run. And I was not a runner growing up. I ran in the military because I had to, but if I was running without a basketball or a football in my hand, I was in trouble for something. It was punishment. And so I go to this little run group, and I remember, showing up there at 5 a.m. and there's like 30 men or women in downtown Austin. And I'm like, oh, they ain't got nothing for me. This is going to be easy. And they were going on a 2-mile run. And so I thought I was ready to smoke this 2-mile run. Bro, there wasn't a step. My lungs were on absolute fire. I'm wondering, what the fuck am I doing right now? I'm still smoking a pack of Newports a day. And, but I got done, and I just remember having this sense of accomplishment. And it was just like, man, I need to feel this again. And so I kept going back, and 2 miles turned into 3 miles turned into 4. And then all this, getting out of the military, they diagnosed me PTSD, depression, anxiety disorder, panic disorder, agoraphobia, sleep disorder, nightmares, like laundry list of shit, and then just slide me 10 bottles of pills.
Oh, yeah.
And I had tried all that before. I put all my eggs into the mental health basket. I tried taking the medicines, tried going to the appointments and all that, but it just didn't keep me happy. It didn't keep me sober. And so then I dive into this like spiritual route with the 12 steps and, meetings and all that kind of stuff. But I just had always trapped myself in like this recovery bubble where it's like the only people I talked to or did was just about recovery. And what nobody ever talked to me about, or what I never knew to put any focus on, was like, it's on me to build a life. It's on me to find something that lights a fire up under my ass that makes me excited to get up out of bed every morning. And I tapped into this running shit, and it started doing shit for my brain that no medicine had done before. The depression kind of started getting better, the anxiety, the sleep, everything just started getting a little better, a little more manageable. And it transformed my experience in treatment, experience in everything. And so then I started getting actually involved in the running community in Austin. I mean, I've been all around the country. I haven't found many places that have a community like Austin when it comes to that. And so fell in with some people that saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and they knew how to kind of nudge me competitively. And so I remember I ran my first race was a 10K, and they looked at me and they're like, "Ah, you could do more." And I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "You could run farther." And so then my next race was a 30K and a 50K and a 100K, and right around the 100K mark, that's where like things really changed for me. Where it was like I took a look around and was like, "Wait a minute, like I'm capable of far more than I've been giving myself credit for here." Like I've spent so many years in rooms introducing myself as Shawn the alcoholic or Shawn the addict and all these different things, but like I may suffer from that, but that is not me. I am capable of far more. And so that was just like lit that fire. And then around as all this is going on, we ended up going to court and they ended up letting me off 10 years max probation. And so it was just like, man, like God gave me this gift and this chance to redo this. And I knew it was my last shot, and we've been riding ever since.
Dude, that's so badass. So what's the furthest you've ever run?
100 miles.
100 miles? That's crazy.
I did
That's a lot. That's a long race.
a lot. So I did right after the 100 miler, I did the Tahoe 100K, and that was at altitude. It was much more, in my opinion, was a much more difficult race than the 100, just because of the altitude and all that. But they were doing the Bigfoot 200 in the opposite way as I was doing it, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody that's done a 200-mile race. And there's people absolutely that get out there and run them, but it was mostly people just basically kind of power hiking the whole thing. My goal was always to see how far I could run. Like, I don't care how far I can power hike or any of that. So 100 miles was kind of where I tapped out at. Not tapped out, but
What was the furthest you ran leading up to train for the 100 mile?
62.
62.
100K, yeah.
How many times did you do that? Or
At that point, once. I was very, very naive in the whole running
so
game.
you did 62K to train for 100 mile?
Yeah, probably 6 months before that, I had done 100K.
What is 62K in miles?
100K is 62 miles.
Oh, okay.
62.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So I did Bandera 100K,
Mm.
and then I qualified for Western States, which is like the Super Bowl of 100 milers. And so then it's funny with ultra marathons, like as I'm doing it, and when you get done, you're like, all right, there's no reason to ever run this far again.
Yeah.
And then you wake up the next day and you're like, I could do it. And it starts creeping in on you.
How are your knees? I mean, I run marathons. I do 50-mile rucks with my buddy Chad Conley. He has an organization called 50 for the Fallen, where he'll do 50-mile rucks with, it's for veteran suicide awareness and stuff like that. And we kind of do them all over. And I've done a couple of those with him. But dude, my feet are shot, my knees are shot, and I'm in really good shape.
Right.
How the hell? I still don't understand how you guys get through 100.
Trail running is so much different than road running or rucking or any of that kind of
I
stuff.
love trail running.
It's so much different. If you think of like just 26.2 miles on the road, like that shit is dreadful. It's just pavement, constant,
Hard pavement.
same steps. When you're out there navigating terrain, you know what I mean? My 100-miler was on the Appalachian Trail. Like it was a point to point. I didn't see anything twice. You know what I mean? 1 minute you're scaling the side of a mountain, next time you're going deep in the woods. And so it constantly keeps your mind engaged. And then with ultra running, a lot of the tips I'll give people is like, you don't ever think about the total distance. You just aid station to aid station. That's how you break it down. And so I think with the softer ground, and you know what I mean, now you got Hokas and every other thick shoe out there. My knees were always pretty good. My lower back is messed up from the military, so that was kind of my limitations. They had 2 herniated discs bone to bone. So.
That Appalachian Ultra, is that the one out there by that prison?
That's the Barkley.
The Barkley, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that one's badass. My friend just did a version of that recently with that guy.
That's very interesting, right? Because it's a 100-mile race, right? It's 100, but
I don't know. Is Barkley? Yeah, Barkley's is like three loops each time, reverse ways or something like that, and it's not a clear cut trail either.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of have to make your way. But what's interesting is like they might add an extra 30 or 40 miles.
Yeah,
or they might subtract 20 or whatever it is. Like you don't know what you're doing. There's no definitive ending. I saw a documentary on that. I found it very interesting. It's one of the hardest ultras in the world, just because the psyche of not knowing exactly when the finish line really messes with people.
Well, if you, for whatever reason, if it's very easy, like if I'm going to start a race and I've wrapped my mind around, like, all right, we're running a 50. Like I've wrapped my mind around it. I'm good with that. If we're running 100, I've wrapped my mind around that. For whatever reason, you've ran 100 before, but if that 50, for some reason you get lost and it turns into 53, it just mind fucks the shit out of you. Like as if you don't remember you could do a 100-miler and it's only 3 more miles, but it's just, you haven't wrapped your mind around it. So it will fuck with you.
When I was going through BUDS training, like SEAL training, that was one of the things the instructors would mess with us. They would tell us, hey, we're going on an 8-mile run. and that could turn into 12.
Yeah.
And so guys are like, guys that are like, they're very structured in what they do.
Right.
It would drive them insane. You'd see their minds just like they could just be getting angrier and angrier. Why the fuck are we still running? Why the fuck are we running? We fucking already passed it 2 miles ago. And the instructor is just laughing. Like it's all fuck game.
Yeah. It's a tough one for sure.
So I mean, obviously going to jail would be considered like a rock bottom place. Was there ever any other moments during your drug use, that chapter of your life where, like I know in your documentary you talk about, how one day you woke up in an ambulance or with a Narcan, right? They woke you up with a Narcan and then they took you. I found that a very interesting story because I think it relates to addicts, like, and a lot of addicts can relate to it. But I mean, I'll go ahead and tell the story for you. So Shawn's out. I don't know if you're on the streets or where you were at the time, but you had a stash of drugs. You took some drugs, you OD'd. Next thing you know is paramedics are waking him up with Narcan on the ground. They put him in an ambulance. And while he's in the ambulance, he's worried that there's a SWAT team surrounding the ambulance. So he's paranoid out of his mind.
I'm right off base.
Oh, this is right off the base.
Right off base.
Oh.
And I literally get high in a Shell gas station right in front of the door. So I'm just parked right there in front of the door. And I got tinted windows, so I don't care. My buddy hops in, we score. I get high and I go to put it in reverse. And as I go to put it in drive, I fall out. My head hits the steering wheel and I just coast into a truck. And then some E7 comes out and is screaming, making this whole big scene. My buddy put up the windows and stashed everything like that. Next thing I know, I wake up. All I remember is waking up and I'm like, how the fuck is somebody so strong that they're able to hold me down right now? I felt like 3 people were holding me down, and sure as shit, it was the paramedics strapping me in, and they were hitting me with Narcan. And I woke up and all I could think about is I just remember I felt like there was a SWAT team out there ready to take me to jail. And I was just like, I'm gonna get kicked out of the military. I'm in so much trouble right now. Oh my God. And I remember him, he's like, hey man, I think everyone's just glad you're okay. And I was just like, what? And then then they take me to the ER. As soon as I could leave against doctor's orders, I leave and then go right back to where buddy had stashed the dope and we got high.
The same night.
Yeah.
The same night.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
There's zero, bro, I work with a lot of families now and I talk with so many people and their kids or loved ones are in addiction, and I try to get them to understand it's like, that's not them right now. Like, that's the addiction happening. There wasn't a moment there where I was thinking about my family, or it's just the most selfish time, so selfish scenario in your life where that is literally every minute of every day is, how can I get money? How can I get high? What do I got to do to get it? And that's the only thing that matters.
If you could give those families a piece of advice, like they've tried everything and nothing seems to be working for their loved one, their kid, their daughter, or their son, whatever, what would you say to them?
It's probably the most common question I get, and it's probably one of the most complex ones to get or to answer, just because we're dealing with somebody's life. And so I always reference back to myself, and like you were talking about a rock bottom moment. My rock bottom was sitting in prison. My mom stopped picking up the phone. She wouldn't accept my click calls anymore. That's when I knew it's like, man, like when mom won't pick up the phone anymore, you fucked up. And so what my mom did there was she drew a boundary. She could no longer contribute to me, me doing what I'm doing to my demise anymore. And so what I try to tell families is, you have to draw that line in the sand. It has to be very black and white. If you do this, this is what happens. And, it goes against every instinct in a mother, and especially a mother, but a father too, is like, you're bred to make sure that these kids are okay. And so to tell your kid, to not give them money for food or to not do any of these things it's easy to say, but not many families got to get to a very extreme point before they finally draw that line. But your loved one has no reason to change as long as they continue to have the means for them to get high. No matter what you do for me, I will manipulate that into a way to get high. My mom, for a while, she, there was no sending me money. Like, she nicked that off real quick. But for a while, she'd send me gift cards to be able to get food.
Right.
I'll sell that for 50 cents on the dollar and I'll still get my dope. Like, there's a way that I'll be able to engineer this to get whatever I need. And so until you draw those lines in the sand, and oftentimes, that loved one could very well say, fuck you, and walk right back out the door. And God forbid that's the last time you ever seen them. But at that point, if there's nothing else you could do, you have to protect yourself at that point. for my case, there was my little sister who was witnessed all these things. And so they had to draw that line in the sand for her benefit. And I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
And so you have to start thinking about the rest of your family and yourself. But I have no idea what it's like to be the one thing I always hear that resonates is that mother or father, every time the phone rings at night, they're just waiting for it to be that call.
Mm.
And so it's hard to tell a family to draw that line in the sand when that's constantly their mindset. But that's what needed to happen for me.
Do you think, becoming addicted to, because why is it that some people get addicted to things so heavily and then others don't? I saw a quote one time. It was John Claude Van Damme. You know him, right? JCVD, baby, Blood Sport. Yeah. And he went through a big chapter in his life where he was addicted to a lot of drugs.
Okay.
And it took him a while to dig himself out. And I remember they sat him down and interviewed him and asked him about it after he had recovered. And he said, everybody's body and their chemical makeup is different. He goes, sometimes he's like, whatever it was about these drugs, they loved me and my body chemistry loved them. He goes, somebody else could take the same thing and they don't have the effect, or it makes their heart beat too much. He goes, for whatever it was, it made me feel amazing.
Yeah.
He's like, so I can't say that, like, obviously it's not good. It's not good for the kids that look up to you and stuff like that. He's like, but my body just really, really agreed with these certain chemicals, And so I thought that was an interesting way to break it down. It's not really, sometimes it's not really just a mental, like like it's not about being mentally strong enough just to say no.
Just quit. All you gotta do is say no.
Like you don't understand the struggles because his body's identifying with this substance differently than yours.
Right.
Like,
I definitely think it's very layered. So I think their chemical makeup, absolutely. There's some people that are upper people. There's some people that are downer people. Some people that are alcohol people and not. But I also think, usually addiction comes from some underlying cause of something that happened earlier, whether it was in childhood or life. And a lot of traumas that you may not even think are traumas that end up being traumas that condition us to be some certain way. I take a look back in my life, like personally, and my dad left when I was 2. I spent a lot of time babysitters, latchkey kid. My mom was going to school, and so I was doing a lot of that. And so I look at a lot of my behavior growing up was a lot of attention seeking. The way I dressed, the way I acted, getting in trouble, that was all for attention. And so I think a lot of that played into that. And then, my father was a partier, and so I would only see him a couple times a year. Well, he was Superman, and then I go hang out with Superman. Superman parties hard, and so then I grew up glorifying that life. And I remember one of the most common things you'll hear with addicts is when they get their drug of choice, the first time they do it, they feel like them for the first time. And I remember I had done coke for years and drank and all that stuff, and that stuff was cool. But I remember the first time I did opiates, it was like, oh man, it was like, now I could talk to girls. I don't got bloody tissues at night. I could sleep. I can eat. Like, let's go. And it's like instantly, like I felt cool. I felt this. And so it's like, it's kind of, you ever seen that movie Limitless? It's like you get your drug when you find your drug of choice. And it's like, I feel like me now. I can finally be me. And I'm not worried about what people think or what people are saying. But, now being this deep in the game in recovery, I could look back and see all those things added up to be that.
Yeah.
Once, and I was at a time in my life, I wasn't living with any type of purpose or anything, bigger than myself or anything like that.
Do you think this like war on drugs, do you think this helps all of this situation that we're dealing with in this country? I mean, obviously it's not helping.
Like the old school DARE war on drugs, or?
Yeah, there's still a war on drugs. It's not DARE like it used to be, but there's still a significant effort and amount of money put into stopping drug use. It's not working.
No.
But do you think it helps or it's actually making things worse?
I don't know. It's such a tough thing because are they really doing stuff to not, like, I don't know, you could get in a conspiracy right now, but
go for it. That's what we're here for, dude.
I don't know. It's like, I think on the news or whatever that they're, I wasn't over in Afghanistan, but I hear a lot of different stories about us garden crops and then us, helping stuff get back to here and like all these different things. And you look at the coordination of the uptick in opiates and all that stuff in our country or when it was all going on. So it's a problem. I don't know that they're ever going to be able to curb. And then you listen to what Rogan talks about and legalizing stuff. Like a lot of that makes a lot of sense to me. the biggest thing I come away with and that I always talk about is the only reason that there's a stigma around addiction in this country is because we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
I was my family's biggest kept secret for years. Most people who are addicts are, and everybody wants to keep it like it's a secret. Nobody knows about it, but there's one in every family. Everybody knows somebody. And if you don't know somebody that's suffering from addiction, they're suffering from alcoholism or mental health, one of the three. And so it's like, we all know somebody. It's all this very common thing. Why are we not talking about it? And so, like, kind of in the recovery world, there's this big movement of like recovering out loud and doing a lot of what I'm doing and just being so open and honest with my conversation, that I think that's helping more than anything, because it's actually educating people and getting people to look. Because now in the younger years and the younger crowd, it's like cool to be sober. There's a whole industry out here on mocktails, and the fitness industry is bigger than ever, and like all these different things. And I think that only comes with education. But if our country's really, I feel like we could send a couple people over to the cartels and knock this problem out pretty fucking quick.
Yeah.
So we either keep dumping billions of dollars that aren't going to do shit,
Another one will pop up
or not.
Close to that one.
Yeah.
It's so much money in it.
And then, I mean, you want to start talking about big pharma and all that shit. That's like,
that's worse than all of them.
Right.
Combined.
Right.
Yeah. It's just so much money in it. It's always going to be around. I think, me personally, I feel, you remember when you took like drug awareness in school, like high school or whatever it was, they made us sit through a class. It's always taught by the nerdiest teacher in the school that nobody wants to like to be in there. Like, I feel like if they brought in people like you, people that are reformed, people that are like, that turn their life around, that would be something that would be really beneficial to these kids. I just don't know if they would sign off on it within the education system, but.
This is one of my, I talk about this all the time. That is the hardest thing through all this, through my whole sobriety. That is the hardest thing I've ever tried to do, is speak at schools. I've spoke everywhere. Now, if we're talking about a public school, I can't get in there to save my life. There's so much yellow tape, so many different conversations, and I always get cut off at some point. Private school, all I got to do is say the word, and they are ready for me to come. They want to pay me, all this stuff. I'm trying to do it for free. Public schools, the one example I always give, because it's pretty much the same answer across the board, but I sat down with one school and I sat down with their 8 highest up people at that school. And I went down the line. Almost everybody loved the documentary and what I do. The only reason I was there is because 2 kids just died from fentanyl overdoses. And I go in there, and a woman, she was a counselor there, and she looked at me dead in the face and she goes, "Mr. Livingston, that's great, but I think we have everything under control." And I was like, "Oh, if you don't mind me asking, like, what are you doing?" I said it very respectful, and she goes, "I personally show the student and council a 10-minute PowerPoint of the dangers of drugs and alcohol."
Oh my God.
And I was like, man, with all due respect, like, because we're talking about kids' lives, like, if you would have come into my classroom and put that on, I would have put my head down and went to sleep.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm willing to bet someone like myself with lived experience and a little bit different voice that they're not used to hearing can come in here and grab their attention in a little bit different way. And it's just, dude, it's maddening. I can't get it. The only reason I could figure out is if they bring someone like me in, they're admitting their school has a problem. But it's either that or your kids keep ending up on the news.
Yeah.
And so I don't talk to a student or a parent that's not like over the moon that wants me there. But then you get to the yellow tape of these schools, and it's difficult as hell.
What do you think we have to do to break that stigma and allow people to come in there and talk to those kids?
Yeah, I don't know. If you figure it out, let me know. I try to talk to I've tried to talk with law enforcement. I've tried literally every avenue to get in.
Have you tried reaching out to senators, congressmen, anybody that can?
I never jumped that high yet.
Maybe that's a move.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm new navigating this world in some respect. Is like, getting, this is just me being honest, but there's a lot of, I think with me, there's like imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I felt like you got to have a certain social media following to be able to have the power to do these things, or to be able to reach these people or reach out to them and stuff like that. And it's like, at the end of the day, I just, I don't think there's anything crazy about my story. I just got my shit together and started running. But a lot of other people seem to think there is. And so really I need to start having that behind myself to start reaching out to those bigger type people and congressmen to see what we can make.
Sometimes your calling's bigger than what you even realize at the time.
100%.
Yeah. And I think that's why you're seeing it. The documentary, potentially a film coming out based around a documentary, same story, all of it. Yeah. That's going to be sick. Do you think like this drug use, you think it's more of a mental illness in this country, or you think it's more of like a spiritual void in this country? Your thoughts? So you're a Christian?
Yeah. Yeah, God has definitely played a big part in my life, especially this past year. Dude, I think there's so many things that go into that. I think number one, I don't think today's youth have a lot of good, strong men to look up to. Um, just the kind of way the media has painted things, or movies have changed, and all that world. Like those people aren't out in the front anymore. I think a little, the pendulum swung back the other way a little bit, so it's becoming more prominent. But having those people that you can actually look up to and go to, that you can trust and talk, I think would be big. What was or ask that again?
Mental or spiritual? Is it is it a mental illness in this country, or is it a spiritual void missing? Because we're not going to church every Sunday anymore for the
Yeah.
most part.
Um, yeah, I think there's definitely some of that. I think whether it's going to church, it's just understand there's something out here bigger than ourselves. We live in this world where it's social media and it's me, and everything is just about us all the time. And that's where my life was the shittiest. That's where I was the brokest. I had the least friends when I just made everything about myself. And when I turned my sights towards helping people and like putting good energy out in the world, all that stuff started coming to be. And so I think having faith and understanding there's something out here bigger than myself. For me, it's God. For anybody else, it could be something else. But I also do think that we live in a country where they will throw pills at you for anything, and then every little kid is ADD or depressed or this and that. And
Yeah.
bro, their chemicals in their brain aren't even done. Their brain's not even done being healed yet, and we're dumping more chemicals in on them and wondering why they're all fucked up.
Yeah.
Even the medicine they put on people for zits, that Retin-A, I was on it as a kid. Like that has a bunch of like lasting effects on you.
Yeah.
And so I think it's coupled. There should be more open. I was really impressed with what happened at the last Olympics. Like kind of all the athletes started being like more prominent and talking about God and taking their stand on it. And you've seen a lot more celebrities do that. And I think that's what helps kind of take that turn.
Yeah.
And I've always been open kind of about my faith and my journey with God. I don't go to church every weekend, but I also don't feel you need to go to church every weekend to have a close relationship with God either.
You know what I learned? I went to church for a period of my life. I found kind of like my own niche in spirituality, where I do enjoy church. I love being around people that want to be the best version of themselves.
Right.
You know, whether I believe in everything, it's my own interpretation that I kind of keep to myself. But I have a very deep spiritual side to me with the universe. I think it's alive. Um, but one thing I do like about what the church instills in these kids is it teaches them that just because you're alone in your room with the door shut does not mean you're not being watched.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that unfortunately has gone away from society, where, and you could tell just by what people post on social media, they've gotten past the point of doing it in hiding,
Mm,
and they do it publicly because they can get likes and
yeah.
followers, and I think that's the scariest part of social media is it's made doing the wildest shit cool
Yeah.
so you can be famous. And I think that's very disturbing that they've lost respect for somebody like watching,
Mm,
because as a little kid, they did this experiment one time with these kids I saw where they brought one kid into a room and they had a little basketball hoop on the wall, and they put a piece of tape, right? And they had a scoreboard, and the kid was supposed to throw the basketball into the hoop, and if he made it, it would, give him a point. And I think they gave him like 3 minutes to make as many baskets as they can. They said it was a competition. Um, and they did this with like, I forget, it was like 50 kids or whatever. And it was almost the same situation with all of them. They would start the test and these kids would start shooting, and then the adult would leave the room and shut the door behind him. And he would tell them, I'm not watching, but you have to stay behind the line. Okay. And so these kids would be like, okay, okay. And they'd start shooting these baskets. Pretty soon they're like, there's no adults in here. I can just cheat. I want to win. So they would go right up to it and they'd, put it in the basket, take it out, put it in the basket, put it, because they want to get the highest score. Well, then they would run it again, and then this time they would take a big stuffed bear and they would sit it in a chair next to him, right? That kind of like facing them in the basketball hoop. And they would go, this is so-and-so. He's going to be watching to make sure you're not breaking the rules. None of those kids would cross that line,
really?
even though they knew that was imaginary. And it's
That's
not a real
great.
person. The thought that this could be a real person, somebody is watching me, kept them all in line with, I think, the exception of like one little asshole that just didn't care about the bear.
That would have been me.
Yeah. But it's interesting, and it correlates very well with like the idea of religion and how it is effective, in teaching kids like mind your P's and Q's. That's the whole Santa Claus story, you know. Good
Right.
kids, bad kids don't get anything, you know what I mean? And so we've kind of definitely lost our way. And I know there's a stigma in society about church and about religion. And, we've seen religions cause war, and so many people have died, all around the world based off of religion. But there's good aspects to religion too. There's just radicals on all sides,
Right.
and it's like, I think that we need to do a better job of teaching the world and the kids that it's okay to have some religion, to believe in a higher being that is looking at you and judging you and your actions. And, you know, um, I just think it's important. I don't know. I think that would be a good first step to trying to solve this.
Yeah.
I know Trump just put out a new, I don't know if it was new, whatever it was, but basically he's going to war with fentanyl right now.
Good.
Yeah. And I've been waiting for somebody. Like, there's so much fucking fentanyl, and the majority of it's coming through the Canadian border, believe it or
Right.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. That's very interesting, and I don't, dude. I definitely don't think you're wrong either. Having that sense of that, and I don't want to be the old guy, but I think kids are raised very differently now from when you or I were probably coming up, and I got spanked, I got smacked across my mouth, but I always had that in me of like, oh shit, I shouldn't do this because I'm gonna get in trouble. And what sucks is working in recovery and working especially in the treatment industry, which I did for years. A lot of these people, a lot of these people that I see are kids that come from great means, and they've been in 6, 7 different treatment centers. And like I told you, my rock bottom moment was sitting in a prison cell. My mom wouldn't pick up the phone. Most of these kids will never even see a holding cell, let alone a jail cell or a prison cell,
Mm.
because they get bailed out immediately. They don't even get to dip their toe in the pool to ever really find out what the deep end is like. And so when you constantly go through and you don't know what it's like to be in trouble or actually to have consequences, you live your life as such.
True. It's a good point. And there's that whole cookie in the cookie jar and mentality. All these kids, like, my brother's dad raised me and my brothers. And so he was like an old school biker. And his rule was like, hey, if you're going to do it, I'd rather you do it in the safety of our house. That way I know you're safe,
Right.
instead of hiding it from me. And then I get a call in the middle of the night and I got to go get you. Like, if your friends want to come here, you guys want to party, smoke some weed, do a little blow, drink, I don't care.
Right.
You're like, but I'd rather you do it where I know you're safe and be honest with me. And he's like, and your ass better be in that chair Monday morning in class. Right. So those were the rules that we grew up with. Just be honest about it. So I kind of raised my daughters along with that same notion. I don't make it a stigma. You cannot do this. You cannot, and you will not. Because if you tell them that, then they're going to go, all right. And as soon as they see an opportunity, they're going to want to know why this is so forbidden. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that there could be some coaching for parents too that's not really readily available, where they can learn. The problem is a lot of parents are reactionary instead of being proactive. They're reactive. And so you have, like your mom was talking about it, it's like one day you have this perfect kid, he's joining the military, he's a basketball player, he's got all these things going for him, and then the next day he's a heroin addict. And it's like, just because everything looks good with your kid going through all of this does not mean things won't change.
Right.
As their brain develops and they're going through all these hormonal changes in their bodies and their brains still growing. Like you said, it's real easy to slip into that, and then you mix it in with some shit that might have happened when they were kids. And the next thing, they're stuck in this loop or this chapter of their life that you're just praying that they get out of. But if there's something you could do proactively, or you could teach them like, hey man, you might do this. You might try some stuff, and it's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. Just recognize when it's time to get out, and when it's time to say, hey dad, come pick me up. I bit off more than I could chew this time. You know what I mean?
Right.
Don't be afraid, because what happens if they can't rely on the parent to come get them when they're scared, then they rely on somebody else that you don't know what their intentions are with your kid.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the warning signs as for a parent was, my stepdad used to always say, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. And I'd let it go in one ear and out the other. And I always fancied myself as this great leader and all this stuff. But all I know is when I hang around to people that do dope, I do dope. And so it's like getting families to understand. It's like, if your kids are hanging around not good people, it's not going to be a good outcome. You really need to take that stuff serious. And unfortunately, like I do interventions, and so I'll talk with families when things are at their absolute worst. And every family I get on the phone with, usually mom or dad, they want to give me the whole rundown of the whole story. Unfortunately, like I've heard this story time and time, and it's all the same.
Yeah.
Every story is the same as mine, same as any others. And a family will tell me thinking it's like this unique thing that's happened to their kid, but it's all the same shit. And so really drawing that line in the sand, and there does need to be more. You know, a lot of my stuff, a lot of my conversations and phone conversations are spent trying to coach these families. Or, you know, there's a woman that I work with. She kind of gets the families ready to have that final conversation to draw the line in the sand, so then I can go in and do the intervention and get them where they need to be. But yeah, there's families absolutely need coaching when it comes to that.
What do you say for like people like there's a lot of people now in your world, your network, that have reformed or they're trying to get their lives together now
Mhm.
and they're kind of relying on you. What are some telltale signs that you see that they might be relapsing soon? What
Um,
are signs like people could look out for?
if somebody has a history with substance abuse,
Yeah.
you'll start to see a lot of ego creep back in. You know, it's
Like how so? Like what's an example?
just, you know, they know what they're doing. I got this. I know what's right for me. I'll do this. But just start getting very, you know, braggadocious again or boisterous with kind of how they're acting. That's kind of a telltale sign they're feeling themselves a little bit too much.
Mm.
Your early recovery should be a very humbling experience. Um, that or just, you know, obviously being a man of your word, woman of your word. When they start lying, there's no reason you should. If you're sober, there's no reason you should be lying anymore.
Mm.
Stuff like that, or just kind of the same behaviors that you saw in the first place. Um, Starting to isolate, starting to go away. You know, taking dips down. You know, starting you see them depressed, kind of things like that. Those are all signs of where I'd start kind of looking.
And so like is what's the period of recovery or is recovery open-ended? You know, for somebody that's trying to change their life, they might watch this podcast and go, you know what? That's fucking so inspiring. I want to do this. I want to recover. I want to get clean. At what point can you start to go, I did it? Or is it never I did it? It's just always working on that recovery.
Everyone is different. What I'll say, like statistic wise, and this is the most staggering. The only reason I remember this statistic is because it's the most staggering one I've ever heard. But what do you think the success rate of somebody that goes and does 30 days of inpatient treatment, gets out, and then just goes on about their way? What do you think their success rate is?
Man, I know a lot of people that have done that. I would say maybe 25%.
You ready?
Yeah.
0.02.
Wow.
0.02. That's a national statistic. It's not my statistic. That's what it really is. 30 days of treatment. If you go 60 days of treatment, if you go 90 days of treatment, it still doesn't even get up to 1%. So now I go out to a treatment center and I'm talking to 60 guys. And I need to get them to realize all of y'all only have a 0.02 chance of one of you guys being sober out of all this. And so it's like if people don't get that inside of their head and understand, like, there's no treatment center on this fucking earth that is going to get you sober. If they're telling you they're going to get you sober, they're lying to you. They will get you ready to go get sober. They'll get you in the mind state to be ready, but you're not going to go anywhere for 30, 60, 90 days and just be cured. It does not happen like that. And so if you want the best statistical chances of getting sober, your care needs to be about 18 months of care. And so that's from the day you check in the detox, the day you go to treatment, however long you're in treatment, meetings, intensive outpatient afterwards, recovery coach, sponsor, everything, sober living, all these different things. You want that to look about 18 months. And I think, don't quote me, but I think it goes up to around a 60% chance if you do all that.
18 months.
But also the work doesn't stop. A lot of people will get to that year mark or wherever, and they go, you know, your brain is still healing. You go through arrested development. Do you know what that is?
No.
Not the show. Everyone always thinks I'm talking about the show, but you literally freeze your brain at the age of whenever you started using hard drugs or alcohol. And so it takes your body a long time for your brain to actually start healing from that. And so, especially once you've given 10, 15, 20 years to whatever your substance is, to think you're going to go somewhere for 90 days and it's just going to be gone doesn't work. And so if you're willing to do all these things, you have a pretty good shot. And then who are you surrounding yourself around? I'm a big proponent on finding something that lights fire up under your ass, like running did for me. Got me in touch with amazing community, amazing people. And all the 12 different times I went to treatment, I didn't have a shot. That last time I went to state-funded treatment was definitely the poorest place I had ever went. And I left there so fucking ready and so excited because I had this new thing of running. I had this amazing group of people in the running community. I had the recovery community, and I had built a foundation for myself I didn't realize. And so, like, I stepped out ready. And in all honesty, I've never looked back because I continued to chase that and continued to surround myself around people that make me uncomfortable, that make me want to be better, and continue to do those things. But a lot of people aren't mentally ready to do any of that. The only reason I think I did it is because I got into running and ultra running and just had that fire. Most people, the bar for them is, I just want to get sober. And I don't think people think this is a hindrance. In a lot of ways, like, this shit is a superpower. Take a look at Kobe Bryant. Now, I'm not saying Kobe Bryant was an addict, but as far as latching on to something and doing that shit over and over and over and over until you become really, really special at something, addicts have that gene.
Yeah.
I was able to tap into that with running, and I went from never running before to winning and placing in ultra marathons, finishing a 100-miler, to doing all these things I didn't think a dope fiend could ever do. And so if you can tap into that and understand, like, you could really tap into something truly special, get around the right people, find people that light a fire up under your ass, and good shit happens.
So let's get to that running. You ever experienced runner's high on the Lazy Marathon?
Of course.
You got any crazy stories of stuff you've seen out there on the trails?
I got a funny one for you. So, I mean, I got a couple. I got probably the best story I got. It's a God story. How much time we got?
We got an hour.
All right,
we're good.
So, an hour still?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I'll tell you a funny one, and then I'll tell you the big one. So, I get up insanely early. I get up around 2 every day. People think I'm nuts, but that's just I operate the best in that time. I like getting up early. I go to bed, usually about 6:30.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I had to drink an extra, and just to make this, I had to drink an energy drink, 2 cups of coffee.
We're gonna go past your bedtime.
It's we think it's worth it. But I remember going out, and I was doing a trail race, and I was going out, and my friend, she asked me, she's like, "Hey, I got wipes. Do you want these wipes?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good." And so in the ultra running world, there's kind of 2 types of ultra runners. There's ones that want to be real light because you're trying to place or win the race, and you're trying to be out there as least time as possible. And then there's people that aren't really that fast, and they just want to kind of complete the distance, which is still it's what I would argue is harder because you're going to be out there much longer. And so they're wearing a pack. They got first aid with them. They got all the things. Well, I was a very minimal runner. I didn't carry any of that. So she asked me if I wanted these wipes, and I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm real regular. I go a couple times in the morning. I'm good to go." And so it was a night race because it was dead of summer in Texas. And so we start off on this night race. The sun hasn't gone down yet, but we're starting and we're running. And I was probably 5-10 miles in, and the race was still pretty compact. There was a lot of people around, and all of a sudden my stomach goes, and I'm like, oh no, what am I gonna do? And so I'm like, all right, cool. So I go up this little ridge, and I find this little spot, and I clear the spot. I'm like, all right, good to go here. And so I drop trout, start handling my business, shitting right here. And then I look and I realize the trail goes down and is going to come back right at me. So all those runners I was just running with are about to be heading right for me. And I'm like, oh shit. And so I hurried up, and I'm digging this pile, and I shove everything in there. Well, I don't got any wipes now. And so off with my shirt, use my shirt, bury my shirt somewhere in the hill country in Texas. And so I get back out on the trail, and I'm like, oh, thank God that's over. An hour later, my stomach does the same thing. But luckily now it's out, and there's no like leaves or anything out here. It was all like the pine needle type shit. And so had to go again. And then by that point, again, it's dead of summer, so you are like drenched in sweat. And so all I had on was running shorts and then compression shorts. So the compression shorts had to be the toilet paper for that round.
Right.
And then I got done, and like the thin ass running shorts are sucked to my body, and I'm running, and my friend was like, "How was your race?" And I'm like, don't even ask.
That's the worst.
Yeah. So that was, I always get a kick out of
I
that.
have a lot of underwear that's buried in the hill country out there.
See?
Same thing.
So that's why I started waking up earlier and earlier, because I always need to make sure I shit before I go do my runs. And so that everyone always wants to know how the origin of me waking up so early happened. That was literally why.
Okay.
So I just had to wake up, make sure if I'm going for a 4 a.m. run, I got to wake up a couple hours early, drink my coffee, empty the tank, and now we're good to go.
Yeah.
But the biggest and probably one of the best stories I got is throughout my whole journey, I can look back and realize, like, I wasn't a big God guy. And not that I didn't believe in God, but I just didn't quite know what to believe. And so I always make the joke. I was like, maybe I listened to too much Joe Rogan, start questioning everything. Like, man wrote the Bible, can't quite trust man. But I really questioned it and didn't know what to believe in. So I just didn't know. And so I think one of the words that I always breezed over and never really thought about was like faith and like having faith and all that. And this story that I'm going to tell you, it lets me know without a shadow of a doubt, God is very real in my life, and I don't care what anybody has to say about it. And so I'm in the process of getting ready to get kicked out of the military. It was the one and only time they were going to send me to treatment, and so they sent me to a 30-day facility in Austin. And so at this point, I'm just trying to get out of trouble, trying to salvage my military career. And I get shipped there, and my MO my entire life has always been hang around the funny guys. Hang around the funny guys, we're going to talk shit. Doesn't matter if we're in sports, school, the military, jail, prison, you name it. Hang around the funny guys. And so I go up into treatment, and I meet this guy, and he's 6, 7 years younger than me, funny as hell. And I'm like, oh, cool. Here's my rehab homie. We're going to ride this out. This is going to be cool. And so we're in groups, and, we're talking back to the facilitators. I'm in there talking to girls and doing everything you shouldn't be doing in treatment. And along the way, I end up breaking one of the cardinal rules and don't date in the treatment center. So I think it's a bright idea to start dating one of these girls in the center. And they always say you don't want to ever date anybody with the same mental health as you, is the joke they make. But get out of treatment and end up in the most toxic 2-year relationship known to mankind. Start getting in trouble with the law, like I told you before. Catch my 2 felonies, and now I got to go away, but my girl's going to hold me down while I'm gone. All my guys are going to hold me down. And so I turn myself in. I go away. I don't get a fucking letter. I don't get a dime on my books, none of that. And so I do all my time, and I get out, and I come back to Austin, and I'm lonely. I've been in prison, and so I got to make the logical drug addict decision to see what the girl's up to. And so I look her up, and come to find out she's now with my young buddy from the treatment center. They're together. And so I start texting her, and she starts sneaking around behind his back to come see me. And then he finds out about me, and so he's calling me, he's texting me, and we're gonna meet up, we're gonna fight, we're gonna do all this shit. And that lasted for about a week, and I was tired of all the talk, and so I found out where he lived. And so he lived in these very nice gated community apartments. And so I went and I found him, and I hopped the fence, and I go up to his apartment, and I'm knocking on the door, and I'm trying to get him to come outside. And so for whatever reason, he wouldn't come out. And so the girl, in all honesty, loved the fact that there were 2 dudes getting ready to fight over her.
Oh, I'm sure she loved it.
So she's in there kind of stoking the flame on everything. And she's sitting there saying, oh, you're talking all this shit. Why don't you go out and handle it? Da, da, da. And so he won't come out. So she decides she's going to pack her stuff up and leave, and she's coming with me. And so now I just won the grand prize. And so at least I thought. And so I have this amazing plan that we're going to move to Temple, Texas. And because there's a big VA in Temple, Texas, that is where we're going to get sober. I have no idea what I was thinking. And so we drive to Temple, we pull into town, I find the first little crackhead motel I can find. I get us a room, and we go in, and she starts unpacking her stuff. And so now out comes a laptop, out comes an iPad, out comes a cell phone, out comes a PlayStation, and all this electronic stuff I know she didn't have the money for. And I never got down with stealing in my entire addiction. It just always felt like bad karma. I never did it. And so she has all this stuff, and I've got no problem with the guy other than the girl. And now I got the girl back. So in my mind, we're good. And so I call him up, and I'm like, hey, bro, I got your shit. I don't want it. I'm not going to pawn it. You're more than welcome to come pick this stuff up. And so he had thought that I was like trying to set him up. And so for whatever reason, he sent his mother to come pick this stuff up off me. Why you would send your mom to a shady motel at Temple, Texas with some dude you think's trying to set you up, I don't know, but he did. And so I go out that night, very nice woman, give her the stuff back very quick. That's that. So now fast forward 3 years later, I end up in Austin, Texas. I end up in a state-funded treatment facility that I told you about. 6-month inpatient. Take a look in the mirror, hate who I saw. And so I start going to this little running group. And through the running group, I'd heard about this ultra runner named Penny. And so Penny runs ultra marathons. At the time, I had no idea what they were. It just sounded extreme, sounded cool. So I start looking it up. I discovered Cam Hanes. I discovered who that is. And I'm like, I didn't even know fucking humans could do this. Holy shit. And so I go meet this woman, and I start begging her, ma'am, will you please train me up for a race? And so you already know the impact running's had in my life. And the running community transformed everything. And Penny took me and got me involved in the trail running community. And so she started training me up for my first race. It was going to be a 10K. So she's out taking me on throughout the hill country and, the green belt here in Austin and taking me all over. And one day we're out running and I'm very open with my story. And so I'm telling her my story and she was teaching me how to run downhill, I remember. And as she's doing that, I'm telling her I got kicked out of the military, ended up in treatment, met a girl. And at one point I said the girl's name. And the girl has a very unique name. It's not one you hear every day. So as we're running, she hears the name and she stops and looks over at me and she goes, "Do you know my son?" And I was like, "Who's your son?" Her son was my young buddy in the treatment center. She was the mom that 3 years before had come pick that shit up off me.
What?
Now, if that's not God, I don't know what is. Like, what is the astronomical chances? A city like Austin that's growing every day. We've had all these people come here over the years, growing every day. And I leave this city for 3 years and come back and get plugged in with the one person that would literally introduce me to an avenue that would save my life. If that's not God, I don't know what is. Like, that story could have went down so many different ways where somebody could have got robbed, somebody could have got hurt, like all these different things. Like giving that shit back was the one honest thing I did in my entire addiction. I still have no idea, like, why did I go out of my way to do that? Again, if that's not God, I don't know what is.
That's a great story.
Dude, she's the vice president of cybersecurity for Visa. Now, like, on what spectrum of the universe does a 4-time felon that's been kicked out of the military ever become friends with someone like that? She's been over in Russia with panels with Putin. She's her team took down the Vegas shooter. Her team took down the people that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. I was in the car when her team. Do you remember Backpage?
Yeah.
I was in the car as her team was taking down Backpage. But the one common thread of all these people is they all used Visa with everything they were doing.
Right.
And her like cyber hackers found them and were able to like take all that shit down. So like the fact this woman is who she is in my life, I've spent every Thanksgiving in her house since that day. She's one of my best friends in the world. But that woman saved my life and God definitely put her in my life. So
What's her name? Penny?
Penny.
Way to go, Penny.
Love you, Penny.
Well, this is one hell of a story. I'm so glad I got you on here. Let's talk about where you've been since then. We'll talk about what I Am Redemption is.
Yeah.
What does it stand for? What's its mission? And then I want to get to your experience with Kerrville because I know you and a bunch of your people went down there and were cleaning up.
Yeah.
But let's start with I Am Redemption. Let's let everybody know what it is.
So I got the opportunity to start doing a podcast, and I was working in the treatment industry. I was making great money with what I was doing, but it wasn't necessarily feeding my soul, I guess. And I'd met some people, and they kind of had pitched me the idea to do the podcast, and I just know what it was like for my story to be able to get out there and for me to be able to understand that it could help other people, and it was one of the most therapeutic things I'd ever been through. And so to think that I had that opportunity to be able to give to somebody else, I was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And so I didn't ever think I would get into it like I did. And so we did it the first couple episodes. I was like, oh, this is cool. I like this. And so I didn't quite know what I Am Redemption was at that time. I just remember they were trying to help me with a name and they came up with the name Rise Above. And I was like, that sounds like every treatment center I ever went to. It just like kind of has that generic name. And we were toying with, obviously the documentary is called 100 Miles to Redemption. And I was like, how about I Am Redemption? And everyone was like, oh, I like that. That's badass. And it's not even just me, anybody. Getting people to understand that all these things that were at one time the things I was most ashamed of in this world are now the things I am most proud of to stand in front of hundreds of people and talk about. When you can realize that all this pain has so much power when you give it the purpose of helping other people, like, in my opinion, you found your redemption. When you start using that story to help other people, that's where I was able to find it. And so started doing the podcast, and it's started to do pretty well. And, luckily through social media and connecting with other people and starting to understand that there's more of us out there. There's more people they don't want to just stop at getting sober. They want to tap into more. They want to be part of community and all that. And so I did an event last year in Austin during South by Southwest that a bunch of people ended up coming in town, and that kind of sparked the Redemption Crew, which is just a bunch of us, and we're all over the country and all that stuff. We all come together on social media. We got Thursday night meeting. We got the Run Crew here in Austin. We meet every Saturday, but it's just finding those other motivated, like-minded individuals that are like us and out there trying to use their experience to help other people. So started off as a podcast and now it's started to grow into quite a bit more. So it's it's a cool wave to be riding, to be honest.
Where do you see it going?
My wife and I are in the process of starting a nonprofit. I don't really do any of the things that I do with the intent of making money. I know you need money to survive, but that's not what my goal is. And all I know is I keep putting good energy out in the world and good things keep happening. And so that's what the goal is right now. But, I see it being I'd love to be able to scholarship people to run races. I have a big event coming at the end of September for the 100th episode. And so you're definitely invited to that weekend. It's going to be September 26th, 27th, 28th. We're going to have group workouts, runs, ruck marches. But that whole weekend is going to go, I'm going to donate all the proceeds of that weekend to a friend of mine named Kaylee Williamson. She's part of my run group. She's the only human being in the world to finish the New York City Marathon with Down syndrome. And so she's a part of my run group. And so I'm going to make sure she doesn't ever have to pay for a race or training again. I want to make sure she's taken care of. So my goal is to raise a whole bunch of money for her or people like her and just keep helping, using my experience to help other people. And who knows where it's all going.
I think that nonprofit idea is perfect for what your mission seems to be at this point.
I think so.
I think a lot of people would donate to it, and I think you could do a lot of good. There's a lot of people out there. They just need to meet somebody like you, and they could get their shit together. And so you need to find ambassadors out there that are like you.
Yeah.
And you could send them out there into the world. Somebody needs to spearhead that, because just like we were talking about with like the education system, nobody's going to relate to death by PowerPoint, especially a kid. Right? How do you relate to something you've never experienced? Maybe you have somebody in your family that it might hit a few of those kids, but even then they probably don't fully understand what the hell they're listening to. You bring in somebody that looks like they could be their uncle or their dad. This guy's cool. He's got tattoos. I'm going to sit down and be interested in what he has to say.
That was always there's a place in Austin. It's called American Youth Works. And years ago when I was first getting sober, I was a mentor there, and I would go pick the kids up and take them running out on the trail and all that. And there were other mentors there, but the one thing I noticed is a lot of those mentors were like UT students, very like clean cut. And I'd come in there not clean cut, tattoos, backwards hat, whatever it was. And those kids would just gravitate towards me.
Yeah.
And so that's what was so frustrating is I'm sitting there trying to get in touch with these schools and let them know the work that I do. It's like, I know my message hits. I know how these kids react to me. I know what it's like being in a private school and watching all these kids message me or follow, you know what I mean? All this stuff. It's like, they can't get enough. And so you can't tell me it doesn't resonate or hit over here too. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's probably a stigma. There's teachers see you showing up all tatted up, your past, your history, you're probably being, put in a group that they don't want to expose these kids to, but you could literally be the biggest influence in those kids' lives, where a significant percentage of every single class is going to go down this road at some point in their life.
Right.
So I hope anybody that's listening to this or knows anybody that could share this with anybody that can help Shawn out with his mission. And like, if we can get this to the schools in some way, I mean, obviously this isn't Boy Scouts, but it could be something that's similar and aligned where it's not in the school, but it's something like a camp, a running camp or something that also is able to speak to these kids on these things. Because I have two daughters. I have a 13 and a 15-year-old. And if there was a camp I could send them to for the summer where they get to have fun, they get to exercise, but at the same time, they're going to learn stuff about drugs. They're going to have some serious, hard conversations that are actually going to help them. Like, what more could you want for your kid?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I did. There was an area school. I got called by a public school, and so I was super pumped to go do it. And I get there and realize they were going to have me speak to kind of like, I don't know what you'd call it, like their diversion program or like the block of the school where all the troubled kids go.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And they had like a licensed chemical dependency counselor like on staff there, which I'd never seen at a school. And I remember talking with her, and I was like, ma'am, I'd said something. I was like, I thought I was speaking to the school. And she goes, oh, no, these are the kids that need it. And I was like, I hear what you're saying, man, but I didn't go to a school like this. I went to a school like that over here. And so to think that because they go to regular public school or like, I would argue they're probably more at risk because they live under this delusional world that they're never going to get in any trouble or any of these other things. And so this shit does not discriminate. I've sat down with Austin PD and talked with them as their officers have been, in treatment, going home to a bottle all night, like veterans, this doctors, you name it. I've done interventions on like high level, very well known name doctors and stuff. Like it does not discriminate who this hits.
Yeah. Have you ever tried psychedelic recovery with with yourself or anybody else?
No, but I also don't think that my view on a lot of those things is with the mainstream recovery.
Hmm.
I'm a firm believer if there's anything that helps enhance your life positively, that you should be doing it. And so I've known enough veterans that have had experiences with like that and found success. I've known people, if I was faced with the dilemma of having to go back on, mental health medication or, to try microdosing, I'm probably going to try the microdosing. And that's just my personal view on things.
Yeah.
But I'm also very aware of like the decisions I make. There's people that look up to me, and I would have to be careful about those, you know what I mean? Those decisions, because what might be right for me may not be right for somebody else, or
Well, I'm
vice
not
versa.
talking about microdosing where you're doing this daily. I'm talking about like a retreat where you
Oh,
go for a weekend.
I'm all for it.
I think
If you're gonna go have a spiritual experience, I'm all for it.
yeah, I think there's places down in Mexico where you can do ibogaine. Have you ever heard of ibogaine?
Of course.
Ibogaine is like the mother of all of them. You know what I mean? Like this is gonna be you're gonna have a hell of a time down there. But people that go down there, they never drink again.
Right.
Like
There's
and they're happy about never doing it again.
unfortunate. So anything that's good like that, the the industry or whatever will get a hold of it and fuck with it. And so now it's pretty routine for a lot of places where if you go into detox, you can get ketamine, you can get this, you can get that. You can't necessarily do that for like an early recovering drug addict or like somebody that's coming fresh off the street. Like I'm going to take anything you give me and I want to get fucked up off of it. I'm not necessarily there to get sober or get right. And so there's definitely, I think when you're talking more about like mental health and stuff like that, absolutely. If somebody's, if you've, if you've got some sobriety time up under your belt and like you want that next level and you're going to go have that spiritual experience, it's going to be guided. Absolutely. Like go for it. I don't know many people that are selling their cars because they did an acid trip or took mushrooms or anything like that, but
Yeah.
it's when you want to do it every day or anything like that. It could be a thing. So I think it's a case by case basis, but if somebody's getting benefit out of psychedelics, then I'm all for that shit.
Well, one of the things with like these very deep psychedelic trips, like whether it's DMT or ibogaine or psilocybin mixed with MDMA, whatever it is, like they're very intense. They're monitored by doctors. There's experts in the room that are monitoring your situation. They're right there in case there's an emergency or anything. But what it does is it takes you so deep that it breaks down your ego wall.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of problems with these guys. Their ego is so thick. Like one of the things you were talking about when I asked you, when do you see signs that one of your friends or somebody part of your organization might relapse? And you said it's when their ego starts to take over again, right? They start to get cocky, start to get a little bit arrogant. Well, what these psychedelic drugs do, in my experience, I've done them before. A lot of my friends have done them. They tear down those ego walls. They shatter them.
Yeah.
To where you don't need them anymore. You feel like when you come out of that experience, you're naked almost. You feel naked in that room because you used to have all these walls up where I'm a tough guy. I'm cool. I don't take shit from nobody.
Right.
Yeah, I can drink that. Yeah, I can smoke that. I'm cool. You know what I mean? It just shatters all of them.
Right.
And it kind of takes you back to where you were before you started putting up the walls. So obviously if somebody's like fresh off and they're trying to, stay off of drugs, it's probably not a good time to do it. But say they were in a program for, say they did like the 90-day, and then after that 90-day, if they could go do like a 2-week retreat down in Mexico or Peru, make it a whole experience.
Yeah.
That might be something that, your organization, your nonprofit could look into. I had a lot of friends in that realm. I could connect you with Rick Addenstrom. He's another former frogman, and he knows that stuff inside and out. And this stuff works, man. Like I'm telling you, if you're having trouble with people relapsing and keep going back and you're going through that loop, like psychedelic treatments, you were talking about 0.02 success rate in those retreats that you're doing now, like significantly higher results, success rates, lasting results with psychedelics.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something to think about.
No, dude, I'm all for it. It's your condition in this, when you come up, anybody that's in recovery or trying to get sober, you get indoctrinated into the 12-step world. And it's like this, abstinence, like this whole way of thinking. And so with that, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. And then for a lot of people, it's helped and it's definitely my foundation, but I've continued to build on it since. I understand now that the 12 steps is a tool. It's not my end all be all. And so there's also therapy that's a tool. Working out is a tool. Like I have all these different tools, and psychedelics is another one of those tools. Like don't make it your end all be all,
Mm-hmm.
but the 12-step world isn't gonna. They don't care much about science. You know what I mean? So then you start diving into the science of psychedelics and what's happening like that. And so it's these different worlds to navigate. I'm kind of always somewhere in the middle, and I'm just out like whatever's best helping people.
Yeah.
Um, let's get it.
Yeah, I think that's just important. You know, your nonprofit could turn into a gigantic $1 million organization someday, and then you'll be the gatekeeper for what kind of treatments the people that are coming to you are going to be able to get. So I think it's important as you're kind of like, these are the steps as you're leading into this, this pivotal role.
Mhm.
And I think it'd be something, just, I would say, if I could recommend something, be flexible, be
Oh, yeah.
open-minded. And, like we talked about the different chemical makeups of everybody. Sometimes none of this 12-step stuff is going to work for them. They need something bigger, something profound. They need to do a drug where they're going to go meet God.
Yeah.
They're going to go see their dead grandfather that's going to slap them in the face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people need that. I know a lot of, especially alpha types. I think that's why it's so effective with the operator community, is because we have such thick fucking ego walls that are up around us all the time. And so, this shatters it. And a lot of these guys, they freak the fuck out. They're like, what is this? You know what I mean? It takes you to another layer of the universe.
Right.
So yeah, I would just recommend that. I think it's cool. But I love what you're doing. Like it's incredible. Like tell me about Kerrville. Like fill everybody in on Kerrville. It just happened, but for those that aren't really aware, some of these people that listen to this, they're in the UK,
Right.
Canada.
Yeah. So I mean the floods hit Kerrville. I remember looking at my wife and said I'm going down there, and she was like, "You're not going anywhere. You're not going there." And then the next morning, my buddy Terrence, he's part of Project Grit. It's a ruck club out here in Wimberley, Texas. He hit me up, said he was going down there, and I was like, I didn't hesitate. I told you I'll meet you right away. And so I went and woke my wife up at 5 a.m., told her where I was going. And we went down there, and it was very weird. Like when you pull into Kerrville, when you pull into town, like you wouldn't think anything happened. Once you start getting down behind properties and down by the water, you start really seeing. And that was my first experience of being around like I guess natural disaster. Um, I don't know that I was yet understood um, what Mother Nature's capable of. And so I to grab one of these branches that has all this muck on it, and to know that it takes every fiber of strength I have in my body to just lift this branch and put it over here, and then to see mountains of this shit and fucking campers up in trees and people's personal belongings hanging from branches, and they as soon as we got there, they were finding people and all that stuff, and it's just like, man, you see this water is ripped through trucks like they were tinfoil. You just show up and it's just like, where do we even fucking start? It was just such an immense thing on both sides of the, enormous trees just flipped around. I don't know. It's hard to even put into words. And so, luckily we had went down there with saws, and when we got there was 30 people there, if that. There was nobody there yet in Kerrville.
Jeez.
And so, by the end of that day, there was probably 600-700 people at that one site with all the agencies and everything there. So it got crowded very quickly. But that whole morning, we were able to just start being able to cut past for them to be able to get the cadaver dogs in and all that. And I do a lot of social media stuff, and I was like, my buddy Terrence, I was like, do we shoot a video? Do we not shoot a video? Like, and it didn't ever feel right to shoot a video, but I was taking a couple just so that I could remember what this crazy shit was looking like. And then I just pulled my phone out at one point. I was just like, hey, we need help down here. If you're able-bodied, we just need help. And then I didn't think that post, I didn't think anything of it. And then I put it out the next day, and it kind of went crazy. And so then I started getting bombarded with people. And that right there was the silver lining in all this, for me was, unfortunately in this country, we need a good tragedy to get everybody to rally around and be what this country's about. But I was getting messages from people in Germany, all across the country, every state, but just how could they help? How could they help? People, like, my phone was going crazy. And so we went down there and worked that whole first day, but then I was getting so many messages where it kind of made more sense for me to be able to kind of quarterback where people were able to go. So they were actually able to get in there and work. Within a couple of days, the agencies had kind of taken it over. And it was funny. I asked the guy, because the post did well, I asked to go to go on a podcast, and I went on, and when I said yes, I didn't quite understand or know what the podcast was. Well, as I'm waiting to go on, I see their intro, and it was kind of like a conspiracy theory thing. So as soon as I got on, they were hitting me with like FEMA questions and this and that. And I was like, look, I love a good conspiracy theory and everything like that, but that was just not what I saw there. We were there so early. FEMA wasn't there yet. Anybody wasn't there. But then they started putting out a bunch of social media posts, turning people away, telling people not to come help. That was for the people that were showing up that were there to take pictures and shit.
Oh, really?
There were people showing up there as spectators. They were showing up to these camps these poor little girls were at to see, bare cement slabs and stuff like that. And so that's what those posts were for. If you showed up with a pair of work gloves or a chainsaw in your hand, they were not turning you away for work.
I'm glad you clarified that. Yeah, because I had a lot of people like they went down there to help, and they're like, "Dude, they turned us away."
Yeah. You could always, what we've been able to kind of find now, we're getting ready to head back down here this Saturday, but what we're able to find now is like private landowners that need help, that we're able to get access to their things. But the it was nice. It was to be able to see that first day and to see all these agencies kind of come in there. It helped me understand situations like this a little bit more, because you have all these different agencies come in, they all have their directives, and then they're all trying to accomplish these directives. There's multiple birds in the air. They're getting their intel. This dude's down here. This dude's down here. These people are telling us to go in. No, you can't go in because of the cadaver dogs. And it was just like a bunch of cross things. So it was too new to be organized yet.
Yeah, it's chaos.
And so then all the conspiracy theorists get a hold of it, and it's like, oh, they're turning people away and they're doing this. And it's like, no, they're just trying to figure the shit out right now. And then I don't know, they were talking about, they had been dumping shit in the clouds before that and all that. And so there was some people hit me up about that. And I was like, look, as of right now, we're just trying to help people. We can take down the establishment when we're done with all this. But
did they ever come out with a final number on that death toll?
I'm not sure.
Maybe Brock can look that up. But one of the guests we had on here, Tyler Vanderkolk, he owns Archery Country here in Austin. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely heard of it.
So one of his customers came in. His daughter was at Camp Mystic. She was one of the girls at that camp. This girl wakes up riding a raft, like a mattress, down a river in pitch black dark, right? Storm, rain, lightning, whatever. She's riding on top of a mattress down a river. She ends up, I don't even know how many miles down, like 10 miles down a river or something like that. And her mattress gets hung up in barbed wire from a local, like one of the ranchers that had whatever, his barbed wire got pulled in. Mattress gets hung up there. One of his Mexican helpers took the horse down to the river just to look at it, and finds her at 4 a.m. holding onto this mattress, stuck in barbed wire, ropes her, and pulls her out of the river with his horse. And like, this girl's freaking out.
Holy shit.
4 a.m. She can't see a damn thing. It's like horrible. And she's getting pulled out of the river with a cowboy rope, you know what I mean? And a horse. And so they get her to safety, and the guy was telling the story. He's like, I got a phone call at like, I think he said about 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. And they said, hey, the girls are missing. You need to get down here now. And so he's doing 100 miles an hour in a storm all the way to Kerrville. And he gets a phone call halfway from a rancher. And he's like, hey, is this so-and-so? I think I have your daughter here. She memorized his number. And she can't talk. She's freaking out. Like, this is my address. You need to come get her, as soon as you can. So you can imagine he's listening to the news. He's making phone calls, and they're talking about these girls are gone. And so for the first half of that ride, he thought his daughter was dead. And then he gets a call, and he goes over there, and, luckily they were able to get her out of that river.
I'm very, very curious if this is the same girl, because the only positive thing we heard that entire day was that some girl had been washed over 20 miles, and they picked her up from that spot we were at, that she had gotten rescued. And so that was like the one good piece of news that we had been hanging on to all day, was that somebody had been found alive, and it was at that site.
That might have been her.
They had found, that day we were there, they had found 9 people, and they were just scraping the surface.
Yeah, 105? 135? So they found all the missing ones?
There's still 3.
When we were down there, we had started, these piles were so immense. All you could do is just start kind of chipping away at it, and then making a burnable pile, a trash pile, a metal pile. And we had done a bunch of that. And then kind of the directives after that, over the next couple of days, were they wanted the volunteers to go back in through the same piles again and start looking closer for like more identifiable things, whether that be belongings or actual people or parts or any of that.
You know, I found it interesting too, like, because your duties when you were in the military and you were deployed were, responding to emergency situations like that, and kind of like searching and collecting whatever it was, if it was body parts or whatever from an IED blast or something like that. And fast forward all the way through this whole crazy chapter, and what are you doing? The same thing, but here and for our country.
Yeah.
I found that very interesting. That what are the chances that you're doing the same thing? It was like you were put on this earth to do this,
Yeah, I didn't ever think about it like that, but I definitely, so much of my, I wish so bad that I was the man I am now back then in the military. Especially towards the end of my Army time. When I was in the Air Force, I was all gung-ho, ready to go and all that, but I wish I could be that person back then. And so now it's like I have that, now I just have that in me where, like, if you can, you must. You got to go. And so as soon as I saw that, I knew I was going. And then my buddy saying he was going was that domino that I needed. So shout out to Terrence and Project Grit, because he was definitely the guy that put the battery in the back to make it happen. So
that's awesome, man. Well, I think this is a good spot to wrap this up. I think we covered everything. You crushed every topic.
Thank you, bro.
You tell your story so eloquently. I think you're going to inspire millions, honestly. Before it's all said and done, I don't think God's done with you yet.
Just gave me goosebumps, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think God's done with you, and I think he's got much bigger plans for you, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Tell people where they can find you. If you said there's a film being made on the documentary, do you know what that's going to be called?
So as of right now, it's called My Brother's Keeper. My buddy in the military, we both got My Brother's Keeper tatted across our chest, and actually get the tattoo in the documentary, if you see it. And so the movie is going to be loosely kind of based around the documentary, but it's definitely from the thing that makes it unique. And we had a meeting with the people that did Sound of Freedom, the production company, and we were talking. And one thing I said was, I was like, man, I'm an expert on drug movies, but they only end one of two ways: they either die or they get sober. Nothing out there shows what people were capable of after. And so I think that in a unique way, I think my story does showcase that. And then it also tackles the family aspect. And so being able to see the point of view from the families, and there's a lot of stuff out here for us addicts, but there's not much out there for the families. And so if this can paint that picture and show people or give people some hope on that end, I hope it does. And so that's in the works. We'll see if they get the funding and all that. They're going around trying to do all that right now. I keep my hands away from that kind of stuff. So I just keep trying to do my little run group and my Thursday meeting, and we get a bunch of people from all around the country that jump onto that. Anybody that's looking for me, just I Am Redemption on everything they can find. We drop new episodes every Tuesday. We're definitely gonna have you on coming up.
Let's do it.
I'm asking you right now, but people from all different walks of life. It's not just a recovery podcast. One of the things I always say is we're all recovering from something. So it's just anywhere from UFC fighters to people in music or movies or everyday people that have gotten sober, but all people that have been through overwhelming amounts of adversity and come out on the other side, and usually use that experience to help other people. So,
well, don't stop what you're doing.
I will not, sir.
I'm a big fan of yours, and I'm rooting for you the whole way, because there's a lot of people out there that need this message, and a lot of people that need help, and they need somebody that understands them. So thank you again for coming on. If you guys like this podcast, if you like any of my podcasts.
Well, I meant to ask you, tell me about the...
tell me about
the
Gurkha.
cigars.
So Gurkha cigars are, this guy is a really awesome person. His name is Kaizad. He lives down in Miami. He used to send us cigars on my deployment, which, if you've ever been on deployed or somebody that's deployed, there's nothing more beautiful you can do for that person than send them a care package. These guys are out there, they're eating MREs. Even if they do have galleys out there, it might as well be prison food. So when they receive a can of Pringles or, a box of cigars, you get that little taste of home, little touch that you miss so dearly. And sometimes you don't realize how much you miss it until you're out there for months and months, and you still got 4 or 5 more months to go. And you're like, fuck, So, this guy, he owns this company called Gurkha, and they come up with the dopest cigars. You can look at one of them. You can have that one.
Thanks, sir.
I don't know if you smoke, but
I will now.
Yeah, give it a try. This one's specifically called The Year of the Dragon by Oscar Valladares. I'll just read this real quick. For Oscar Valadares, it was destiny's turn that brought him to his fate in the cigar industry. Working within reach of the industry for years, Oscar took the leap of faith and opened Oscar Valadares Tobacco and Company in Danlí, Honduras in 2012. In just over a decade's time, Oscar has expanded his portfolio to multiple top-rated cigars around the world and continues to grow every day. He's not only grown his portfolio and factory, but acquired many acres and farms, and in this way controls every detail of the process to truly capitalize on a seed-to-smoke experience. Valadares' most innovative mark on the industry has been to replace cellophane with the tobacco leaf protecting the cigar. Gurkha Cigar Group International is proud to partner with Oscar Valadares in this exquisite offering of the Year of the Dragon, which is the dopest name.
Good shit.
But you get their boxes and everything is just like super fancy. It's all quality.
Hey, it's a good looking box.
Yeah, I love it, man. So I love them. I support them. Anybody that supports the troops downrange, I'm all in. And then when it's quality packaging and everything, what else you got?
What was your
What else you want?
what was your favorite thing? What was your favorite thing to get in a care package?
That's a good question.
Let me ask you a couple questions. If
I
we
would-
got time.
No, we're good. I would actually, to answer your question, it was when somebody would sneak me a bottle of booze.
I mean, I know, yeah, dude. I ended up getting Taji shut down on painkillers, the entire base. So they ended up sending me over to the green zone to get the story's going to kind of go off, but they ended up sending me over to the green zone to go get painkillers and steroid injections into my back. And so as I'm leaving, a Fulberg colonel writes me a prescription for Percocets. Those Percocets were gone before I ever got on the Black Hawk to go to the green zone. So I get to the green zone and immediately dip into the ER there, get another script of Percocets. Then they take us back to our bays we're going to stay in. And then the next day I go see, those were gone that day too.
Like
and
you're taking all of them yourself in one day?
I used to shoot heroin and do Oxycontin, Percocets or Skittles. I feel nothing. So then I go see the major. A day or two after that, he writes me a prescription for 90, and then they kind of have me there for a couple days, and I take all those, and then I end up lying and saying they got stolen, and to try to get more, and they said, sorry, we can't write you any more here. So then on my way back out of there, at one point I was talking to one of the girls that worked the desk for the doctors and all that, and her and I did a little hanging out, and so I was asking, I was like, are the computers like, are they linked? Or are they going to know what I'm doing over here in Taji? And she's like, no, they have no idea. And so I get on my way back out to go back to Taji. I end up stopping in the ER one more time, got another script for 30, get back to Taji. And I've gone through all these pills. And I get back to Taji and I go see the full bird. And I always tell people this story. It's like, I've never in my 10 years in the military, never heard a full bird yell up to this point because they don't usually have to yell. But I remember going in there and he's like, all right, Mr. Livingston, is there anything else I could do for you? And I was like, well, if you could write me another prescription, like I ran out of the pills. And dude, my dumb ass, I have no idea what I was thinking. He's like, all right, when's the last time you had one? And I was like, well, the ones you gave me before I left. He's like, oh, okay. So you didn't stop into the ER as soon as you got there?
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, sorry. Yeah. I was like, I didn't know where they were. And, I did that. And he's like, all right, so when's the last time you had the last one? I should have known right there. He knew everything, but I lied my way through the whole thing. And I just remember him very softly is like, do you have any idea how much trouble you can get in? Well, I know a full bird fucking colonel, and just starts yelling. And so they ended up shutting the entire base down. And so then I would show up to the chow hall and everyone's like, oh, you're a Livingston. You're a Livingston. So everybody knew who I was. And so then they stuck me out at War Eagle, which was like this remote ass base where I was just working a field point. And that's where I learned like all the Iraqis coming in to empty the shitters and all that stuff. I had them bringing liquor in. And so then I realized the liquor whole trade over there, it's the whole thing. It was bad. It wasn't good.
Yeah. Zero tolerance. Yeah. Works out great.
Yeah. And then everyone getting stuff in the mail and all that.
Do you think being over there, if you could just have a drink on base, you would have needed to resort to such extreme measures to get a buzz?
No, I would have probably, no.
If you could just go hit the bar up, you guys aren't doing any missions?
No, if they gave you like a 2-3 drink thing like that, I think that you would have give you something I mean, I'm an addict, so I would have probably been looking like, how can I get these guys beer chips off them so I can
Or
order same.
but that's way better than somebody fucking going out and getting Percocets.
It is.
Mm.
Yeah, it is.
Have to go to extreme measures.
Yeah, it wasn't good. I remember my mom used to pack the best care packages, but lemon heads. I couldn't wait till I got lemon heads for some reason. And I wasn't even a big sweets guy, but
Yeah, candy. I love candy. Receiving candy out there. I don't know why. Everything's just dirt. Like, people ask like what it's like. It's just imagine everything's just brown and dirty and dusty. You put something down for 2 minutes and it's got a layer of dust on it.
I remember landing when we landed in Kuwait. Kuwait is the hottest place I've ever felt in my entire life. Like that door opens and it just smacks you right in the face. And I just remember but think about the pallets of water that they'd have just beaten down on that plastic of just 100 and whatever degree heat like that, and just constantly. And then we're drinking those waters. Like, that shit can't be good. Can't be good.
Do you know how much it costs to get one bottle of water out of the way out there?
Huh.
I think when it's all said and done and switched hands with everybody, it's about $400 a bottle.
What?
Yeah.
The
Just a regular bottle of water.
$400 a
like
piece?
that. $400 each bottle.
I remember when I found out what washers on windows for C-130s cost. And I was like, how does the military afford all this shit? It was like a couple $100 just for like a little Teflon washer.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how do they afford everything of this whole plane, let alone just the washers?
Yeah. Our
Right.
tax dollars, that's how, my friend.
So how long have you been doing the podcast for?
This is the 11th one.
Time-wise, 11 weeks?
Yeah, I guess it's been about 2.5 weeks or 2.5 months. Is that right? Must be. We're on number 11. I've done 2 in a week twice, 2 weeks now. So about 9 weeks, I'd say.
What was the initial nudge to get you to do it?
So I've been kind of like immersed in this industry for a while, for about 5 years, and I've been lucky to see some of the best do it. And honestly, I've given this some thought too. I was missing something from my life, even though I was doing cool things. I'm like working in the security industry. I'm training people in fitness. I'm making good money, but I still felt like something was missing in my life. And I saw a Carl Jung quote where he basically said, a man needs to rediscover his creative side, especially in the second half of his life, if he's ever going to find happiness. I probably destroyed the quote, but that's what he said, basically, paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me. And I remember sitting there, I'm like, I don't have anything creative. I don't write books. I don't draw art. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, like, how am I expressing my creative side?
Right.
And so I was sitting there, I'm watching all of these guys in my life, and, and all of their guests that come on the show, and we're just kind of like immersed in this environment. Austin's just like a hotbed for all of these creative types, and whether they're comedians or celebrities or whatever. And I'm watching all these people, and they're all so happy because they're all expressing their creative side. And I just felt like I'm just like some security grunt. And like, yeah, it's a prestigious security job. I'm at basically the pinnacle of where you could get at this point. But I'm not living for me. I'm living for them. So the idea with the podcast was to, hopefully discover that creative side and do something that's a little bit more meaningful and can have more impact on the world, I guess, and leave my mark. And I mean, as soon as I finished the first one, I was driving back home past the airport, and I'm like, this is it. Like it instantly filled something that was missing. And it relit this fire where I'm excited to get up every day. I'm excited to do this, and I'm adding more work to my already really busy schedule, and I'm excited for it.
Right.
And I haven't felt that in a long time.
Right.
Like, because when I went into the military, my goal was to be a Navy SEAL, and I thought that was going to be the end all be all. As long as I do that, I'll put in a full 20 and retire, and my mission is accomplished. But I quickly found out that wasn't it. Like,
Right.
that was, even then, I went through all that work to get there, and 8 years later, I'm like getting out, and I'm like, something's still missing. I don't know what it is. I'm going to go find it. And I've opened up multiple different types of businesses, and, some fail, some peter, some putter, it's just, I don't know. It's like I'm searching in the dark. Right. And I'm looking for a light switch. And then when I started doing these, I'm like, this is it. Like, I love it. And I actually loved it a lot more than I thought I ever would.
Right.
And it's almost scary. Like it's exciting, but it's scary too that I love something that makes you this vulnerable to the world and like exposing yourself for ridicule. Because instantly, I mean, if you sign up to be in the public eye, you're exposing yourself for ridicule. People are gonna check you,
Right.
especially after the whole Tim Kennedy debacle, and it's not the first time that's happened. But people are gonna check you. They're gonna go look up my DD-214, make sure I am who I say I am. They're going to, any podcast that I've ever done, they're going to go back and cross-reference any story I tell and try to dig it. They're going to talk to people that I used to be in platoons with and go on deployments. They're going to find out everything. And it's like, I know I wasn't perfect all the time, but everything I say is honest. And I'm not going to ever expose anybody. I'm not going to expose our TTPs. I'm not going to expose, anything that might get anybody in trouble, and be very respectful about it.
Right.
But I'm not doing this just to talk to team guys. Like,
Right.
I'm here to talk to everybody. Like, I want to meet the coolest people, and I want to hopefully provide a platform where their story can, radiate out into the world and do good and inspire people.
Yeah.
And I look at people like Jocko, David Goggins, and, like there's a stigma in the military where you don't talk about it, especially in special forces. Like, don't talk about it. Well, if nobody's talking about it, how are we inspiring the next generations of frogmen?
Right.
Right. Right. All these people, all these kids that are out there reading David Goggins' books, Jocko books, like, Marcus Luttrell, like all these things, these movies, these books, these podcasts, we are inspiring hundreds and thousands of young kids that are going to be like, that's fucking me. I identify with that guy. I need to go do that job,
Right.
And so it took me a long time. I mean, I'm 41. I started this when I was 41. So it took me a long time to get to over that hurdle of being like, because I knew once I stepped over that line, there's no coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here now. I'm going to fucking do my best to own it, be respectful, and do it the right way, I guess. Just like when you're in the military, say there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. I'm going to try my best to do it the right way and respect those, riding on the shoulders of giants that did this before us, and I'll do my best. I'm probably going to fumble along the way here or there, but so yeah, it's a long way to answer your question, but that's kind of like my purpose with this podcast.
Dude, it's one of the most empowering and freeing things I ever did. And like at first you just sit down and it's, it was like interview style, but then doing, we just released episode 86 this week, and just to take a look back at just like how much I've grown at doing a podcast, how much the show has changed. When I started off, I didn't know what the messaging needed to be or what the brand was. Like I didn't care about any of that. And then it's all just naturally like taking this shape, and I'm able to take a look back now. It's like, damn, I did this shit. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like something that people actually want to come on, or people that look to, and people, I went out to LA recently, like people knew who I was, which is wild. To think that somebody from Texas can go, little me can go out there and they know who the fuck I am just because I'm doing this shit. But yeah, dude, it's one of the coolest things. And, everybody just gives up. They'll quit. And that's not in me. I'm not going to quit at anything I'm doing. So
Yeah.
just sticking with it, dude, you're going to completely separate yourself from everybody else. But I know, just speaking from a military standpoint, like when I started seeing the special forces guys get a little bit more vocal about what they've done and all that stuff, like, bro, it reignited my pride in the military, of being a veteran. It's like, fuck yeah, like these are my people, this is my country. And so I think it's fucking awesome that you guys are, everybody doing that. And I don't see why anybody, knowing you're in the public eye, I kind of, you've seen 8 Mile, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of have the 8 Mile approach. It's like everybody already knows my deepest, darkest shit. Like, use it against me if you want. But I can't see anybody, especially high profile people, like why you would ever put anything in a book or anything. Like, people are going to check that shit. So I don't understand, like, you know what I mean? I don't think anybody would do that. I don't know anything. I don't know the details of, like, Tim Kennedy and all that, but I mean, it seems like a smart guy. I can't imagine him putting something in a book he knows people are going to read where he's going to get ridiculed on. But I don't know anything really about the situation. I just know
You need to go look up what he put in that book.
But if you know somebody's going to read it, you're going to get checked on it. Why put it in there?
I don't know. That's the biggest question we all have right now. Why he would do it, like blatant stuff. Blatant.
I don't know. It's wild. It's wild.
I don't know what he was thinking, but here's the thing. He was a fighter. He was in the military. He was a badass SF guy. He already had everything he needed to be awesome. And he had great personality, lots of energy. People loved him, huge following. There's no need to do any of that. But then also based off of his resume, you don't know how many times that guy's been hit in the head, kicked in the head, explosive blast, concussions, right? ECT, TBI, even PTSD, fog. Like, here's the thing, like, people remember different versions of stories, right? Like, me and my platoon are probably with support on a lot of these ticks we got in, like, troops in contact. Like, out of 20 people that might have been in that tick with me, I guarantee you're going to get 20 different versions of the same story. It's been long enough that you're going to get 20 different versions.
Right.
And when it comes to EKIAs and stuff like that, enemies killed in action, you're also going to get different versions of that story because everybody wants credit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I got him. No, I got him. No, I got him. Well, I shot him last. Why? Mine was more a better shot. Like, so little things like that, obviously, obviously there's going to be some question marks, and also you're remembering a different version. How much has this person's brain forgot the story, and this person that was right next to him, he thinks it happened this way, or they're hearing it from one person and then they're telling it another way. By the time it gets to you, it's 10 times different than the original story.
Right.
Who knows? It's a lot of crazy shit, but certainly he needs a better support circle in his life that can check him and be like, what the fuck is this? You're not releasing this. It's like a podcast. If you said something absolutely asinine in a podcast, your editor, your producer, whatever, is going to pull you aside and be like, hey, bro,
Right.
we're taking that out. You know what I mean? That's not you just having a bad day or something like that. Or you messed up. We don't want to get you in legal trouble or whatever. Right? So he needs more people like that in his life, I would think, that can proofread his shit and just double check, because whether he was lying intentionally or whether he was just remembering it wrong, it's still going to come across that way to the public eye.
Right.
Unfortunately for him.
I remember being in that in one of the treatment centers, and there was a guy who was another veteran, and there was only a couple of us vets in there, and it was everybody else was civilians. And every time we would be in a group setting, he'd start telling like military stories. And the way he was telling them, I was like, bro, stop it. Like, what are you talking about? And so the one day he had skulls going up his arm, and every skull had a hole through its head and it had smoke coming up. It was a dope tattoo. And I was like, yo, what does that mean? And he's like, oh, those are all my confirmed kills. And I was like, oh, okay, really? And I was like, what was your job? And he's like, I was a gunner. And I was like, that's not a job. Like, what do you mean? Like, oh, I was in a gun truck. Again, that's not a job. What was your job? He's like, well, I was an 88 Mike. And I was like, you're an 88 Mike and you had confirmed kills? And he was like, well, yeah, I was in a turret. And I was like, what, did you have a spotter that dismounted when I went out there and fucking found out if they're like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, why are you trying to, that shit's wild to me. Like, you get around a bunch of civilian people, now everyone wants to be a war hero.
Yeah.
But
it's wild, man. I don't know. I mean, military guys are also easy targets. Like, a lot of people don't understand, just like with, recovering addicts, stuff like that, or trying to reform criminals or whatever. Society doesn't want to understand your story.
Yeah.
They don't care. They don't want to know. They have a picture of what a soldier should behave like, or what, whatever, and they expect that. And then when you do something that's out of the ordinary, everybody feels like it's open game. The most people that called me to talk shit about Tim and asked me what I thought about Tim were civilians that never served a day in the military. I'd say 90% of people that I talked to were civilians. They just could not wait for the opportunity to have some drama with somebody that's famous and popular,
Right.
and he's one of our type. And what do you think? So I could go talk shit to my friends at the golf course and say, hey, Shawn said this, and it's a shame. People go through things in their life, and I mean, obviously he's going to pay for this one for the rest of his, he's already put out the statement apologizing profusely and saying, he's going to do everything he can to be a better person. I think he's sincere. It sucks that he let it get to this way, but I think veterans need to look out for each other a little bit more. I know there's a lot of podcasts that are out there now that are taking it upon themselves to call out guys that are fucking messing up, and they think it's responsibility of our community to tune up our own or keep our own in line.
Clicks.
And I think that's, yeah, exactly. I think it's true to a point, but I think there's a way you can do it privately, right? Praise in public, punish in private.
Right.
And then, so I don't know if I quite agree with it. I think it's clickbait at this point, and they're using his fuck up as an opportunity to make themselves gain followers.
Yeah, I did have an episode with Dakota Myers, and he was on, and he had released some of the clips, months after we had been on the show, and people started chiming in with Tim, and I've never met Tim, you know what I mean? Like, everything I've ever seen him do has been super positive, like, everything I've ever seen. But people were chiming in about that, and like trying to get Dakota or my take on it, or like trying to shit talk or trash. And I remember the only thing I replied to was like, he's a grown man that's going to handle his own business. Like, I don't have any business on chiming in on it, but that's the mindset I am. Like, if I need to check someone, one of my guys or one of my people, like, we're going to do it here, but we're not going to show it out here to the world.
Yeah.
It's like, I may not necessarily like who was the president or who is the president or anything like that, but I'm not going to outwardly trash that person and make ourselves look just weaker and like shit. Like, that's locker room talk. You don't show that shit out on the court.
Exactly. Yeah, the snake starts eating its own tail.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that in politics all the time. And unfortunately, you don't want to see it within the veteran community, but there's so many of us out there. We can't stop it.
Right.
That has nothing to do with us. We're doing positive things.
Right. Absolutely. Use your experience to help other people. Talk to cool fucking people.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where your show goes. I forget how we originally got connected.
I think you reached out to me on Instagram, didn't you? To say hello or something like that. And I was like, you want to come on? Or I think we just chatted a little bit on Instagram, and then we ran into each other at the
thing, yeah.
What is it?
Toasty Badger.
Toasty Badger. Yeah, I keep thinking Thirsty Badger.
Toasty Badger. My boy Eric owns that spot, one of the best breakfast spots.
Oh yeah,
there,
dude. This place is awesome. It's amazing. I love it.
It's good shit.
Well, I'm glad we bumped into each other.
Me too,
I definitely meant to get you on. I know we both get busy and we forget about things, but we got you. I definitely want to come on your podcast. And like I said, I'm so very, very honored to have you on here, and I'm proud of everything you're doing. It definitely hits home close to home with me because of a lot of family and friends that have gone through really bad times. So don't stop what you're doing. Thank you for coming on, sir.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Cheers.
If you like this content, please subscribe. That'll help us be able to get more sponsors so we can pump out more episodes.
Guys, look at me. Shawn needs you. I know he looks like tough and cool, but he cries a lot. He goes, if I don't get a Slim Jim membership, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay rent. I'm like, Shawn, you have another job. Just spending too much money on, those tight shirts. Cut your shirt budget. But yeah, like and subscribe.